Jung's most terrifying revelation had nothing to do with psychological disorders. It concerned those who perceive what remains invisible to everyone else, and how this gift becomes their undoing. Throughout his therapeutic work, Jung recorded cases of what he termed refined awareness. These individuals could decode the smallest facial shifts, tune into concealed feelings, and recognize behavioral blueprints that others completely overlooked. They pierced through personas, caught deception in real time, and absorbed the unspoken frequencies pulsing beneath every interaction. Jung called this discovery dangerous because these people often ended up lonely, exhausted, and unable to maintain normal relationships. This wasn't because they were unstable, but because seeing everything created a mental weight that no one else understood. Today, I'll share Jung's most important finding about people who can see all layers of reality, and why he believed this special ability either destroys you or transforms you into something extraordinary. The case that revealed Jung's most troubling insight began with a patient he wrote about in his personal journals. This person was a deeply private, intuitive individual who came to him for help in 1913, during Jung's own difficult time after breaking away from Freud. This patient had what Jung would later call the rarest personality type, showing what he named raw, intuitive awareness. She could walk into any room and immediately understand the emotional atmosphere. She could tell who was being dishonest, who was hiding pain, and who was concealing anger. Jung wrote, "The patient displays an extraordinary capacity for perceiving unconscious contents in others, but this faculty appears to cause her considerable distress rather than advantage. She couldn't do casual chit-chat because she pierced through every social mask. She couldn't keep friends because people felt naked and uneasy in her presence. She couldn't stay at jobs because her energy broke the invisible agreements that let groups work together." Jung realized he wasn't treating an illness. He was observing what happens when someone becomes too perceptive, when they see too clearly for everyday life. He noted how accurately she could read people. She described others as if she could hear their private thoughts and hidden motives. When Jung verified her insights through careful questioning, he found she was correct. This wasn't delusion or imagination. This was awareness so powerful, it had become a problem for normal social interaction. But Jung discovered something even more surprising. His patient's ability to see what others couldn't seemed hard to explain. So Jung began studying what he later called participation mystique. This is when highly intuitive people become overwhelmed by unconscious feelings and thoughts from others. During his Red Book period, Jung wrote, "Some people have such sensitive inner antennas that they don't just hear words. They absorb the hidden emotions in their surroundings." Recent research by Dr. Elaine Aron on highly sensitive people supports Jung's early observations. Her studies show that about 20% of people have heightened sensory and emotional sensitivity, but Jung found something more specific in his personality types: the introverted intuitive. About 1% of people who don't just have strong feelings, but can read hidden mental patterns with amazing accuracy. Jung saw these people have what he called refined intuitive function. Their minds pick up not just obvious social clues, but hidden emotional currents, secret thoughts, and mental patterns others can't see. They notice the sadness behind fake smiles. They feel the fear under confident faces. They sense the dark feelings groups quietly agree not to talk about. Jung wrote, "The danger isn't in the seeing itself, but in the deep loneliness it creates. When someone sees truths that others ignore, they turn into a mirror that people can't stand looking into." Jung called this the curse of the dominant function, Your greatest strength becomes your biggest burden because it separates you from how everyone else sees the world. But Jung discovered the real danger wasn't the awareness itself, since people with sharp perception clearly see others' hidden feelings. Instead, they attract what Jung carefully documented as shadow projection, where people unconsciously attack them for showing what they refuse to accept in themselves. Jung wrote in Psychology of the Unconscious, "Nothing affects those around us psychologically, and especially our children, more than the parts of ourselves we don't live out." He realized this pattern shows up in every relationship we have. When someone's shadow gets mirrored by another's clear sight, the unconscious mind has two choices: accept the shadow or attack the mirror. Jung saw this pattern over and over in his therapy work. The truth seer gets blamed for creating the very problems they're just noticing. His sharp-seeing patients faced this constantly. When they'd gently point out that someone seemed upset, that person would get angry at them for being negative or causing trouble. When they'd express concern about obvious issues, they'd be accused of being too critical or making up problems. Jung saw this wasn't just random behavior, it was psychological self-defense. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he wrote, "What bothers us in others can help us discover ourselves. But most people find it easier to attack the person showing their shadow than to look at what's being shown." This creates what Jung called the outcast pattern. Highly perceptive people often become the designated problem in every group they join. Not because they start problems, but because they show problems already hidden in the group's shadows. Jung saw the person with sharp awareness becomes the holder for everything the group refuses to see about itself. This pattern explains why these people don't just feel invisible, they feel actively targeted by something they can't explain with logic. But Jung's most disturbing finding was still to come. Jung found that overwhelming perception appears differently in different people, so he identified 4 distinct patterns within the introverted intuitive type, each showing a unique way of taking in unconscious material from others. Type 1. The feeling intuitive. Jung found patients who blended introverted intuition with deep feeling ability. These people don't just see what's happening in others' minds, they feel it in their own bodies. They absorb other people's emotions so completely, they often struggle to tell which feelings are truly their own and which they've silently taken in from others. Jung wrote, "The feeling intuitive lives in constant emotional flooding, experiencing the hidden feelings of everyone around them." Type 2. The thinking intuitive. These people see mental patterns and can predict how behaviors will end with amazing accuracy. Jung saw they could tell months ahead when relationships would fail, careers would crash, or people would break down. They don't figure this out through logical thinking, but through reading hidden patterns. Jung wrote, "They have a strange ability to sense the unavoidable endings of hidden processes that others haven't even noticed yet." Type 3. The sensation intuitive. Jung found patients who felt how mental states show up in others' bodies. They could sense coming illness before any signs showed, notice exhaustion before it was admitted, or feel the physical tension that revealed hidden inner struggle. Jung wrote, "These souls work like alarm systems for mental and physical imbalance in the people around them." Type 4. The pure intuitive. The rarest type. Jung found mixed introverted intuition with what he called a scattered secondary function. These people see everything, but have trouble organizing or expressing their insights clearly. Jung observed, they live in constant overload, taking in huge amounts of unconscious information without having the right mental tools to process it. Knowing which pattern you have really matters, because each type needs different tools for what Jung called the integration challenge. But first, you need to understand why Jung saw this discovery as so dangerous. Jung watched how raw perception crushed his patience. He found that seeing everything without proper mental processing created serious risks to both personal sanity and social connections. Jung identified three main dangers that made this discovery so troubling. Danger 1. Breakdown of the shared unconscious. Jung wrote, "The person who sees too clearly puts at risk the hidden agreements that hold society together. When someone cuts through the shared illusions that connect groups, the unspoken deals to ignore certain realities. They become a disruptive force." Jung saw that businesses, families, and societies function through unsaid agreements about what gets noticed and what stays invisible. The deeply aware person breaks these agreements accidentally, just by being their authentic self. Danger 2. Psychological aloneness. Jung saw how sharp perception creates what he called the burden of dominant function. When your greatest mental strength becomes the source of your deepest suffering, he wrote, "The burden of awareness is that it can't be shared with those who don't have it. The person becomes a lonely flame of understanding in an ocean of unknowing." This isolation isn't just about being socially cut off. It runs soul deep. These people often say they feel like they're living on a completely different wavelength from everyone around them. Danger 3. Identity erasure, the scariest finding of all. Jung saw that people who absorb others' hidden mental stuff often lose track of who they really are. They become so flooded with outside thoughts and feelings that they can't separate their own inner world from what they're picking up from around them. Jung called this participation mystique, a state where mental boundaries dissolve and the person merges with the shared unconscious currents. He wrote, "The danger isn't just being pushed out of social groups, but losing your entire sense of self, the complete vanishing of who you truly are as you're consumed by the collective mind." This is why Jung saw the blending of deep seeing as not just healing, but essential for mental survival, since raw perception carried real dangers. So Jung designed what he called the individuation process, a clear path to keep your true self intact while learning to connect with the hidden currents most people never notice. Phase 1. Recognition and separation. Jung taught his perceptive patients to first notice when they were picking up mental stuff that wasn't theirs. He called this conscious discernment, the ability to tell apart your real inner feelings from outside content you've silently absorbed. Jung wrote, "The opening work is to identify what's yours and what's theirs. Without this boundary, there's no personal growth." Technique. Jung had patients spend time completely alone each day, letting absorbed material settle so they could hear their own authentic inner voice. Phase 2. Shadow embracing. Jung found that people who see others' shadows clearly often do so because they haven't faced their own shadows. The more you push away your own ability to lie, be greedy, or act harshly, the more upset you'll get when you spot these traits in others. Jung wrote, "Whatever upsets us in others can show us what we need to learn about ourselves, but only if we're brave enough to look inward instead of just pointing outward." Shadow embracing means accepting that you have every human quality you notice in others. This doesn't make you bad. It makes you complete, someone who can see clearly without judging. Phase 3. Conscious participation. The final phase involves what Jung called conscious engagement with the collective unconscious. This is the ability to connect with the hidden mental patterns of others, without getting overwhelmed or losing yourself. Jung wrote, The individuated soul can serve as a doorway between awareness and the hidden realm, helping others face their darkness without breaking their own psychological foundation. This means building what Jung called psychological vessels, the ability to briefly hold others' unconscious material while staying clear that it's not yours. Jung saw that deep perception either shatters or transforms people. That's why he studied historical figures, to understand the difference between successful integration and mental breakdown. The case of Nietzsche, raw perception without integration. Jung deeply respected Nietzsche's ideas, but saw how his sharp vision eventually broke his mind. Jung wrote about how Nietzsche could cut through social, spiritual, and philosophical masks with brutal honesty. But Jung noticed that Nietzsche never learned how to use these insights in a healthy way. Instead of using his perception to heal, he used it as a weapon against the world. Jung wrote, Nietzsche had amazing insight into human nature, but he stayed stuck in his dominant function instead of blending it into a complete personality. Jung saw that Nietzsche's loneliness and mental breakdown showed what happens when someone with heightened perception doesn't process what they see. The person gets consumed by what they witness, instead of transformed by it. The case of Meister Eckhart, successful weaving. Jung studied the medieval mystic Meister Eckhart, who he saw as proof that heightened perception could be successfully integrated. Eckhart had what Jung called mystical intuition, the ability to sense spiritual and mental layers that others couldn't detect. But unlike Nietzsche, Eckhart channeled his insights into loving service. Jung wrote, Eckhart turned his sharp sight into wisdom that could nourish others without overwhelming them. He saw truth, but shared it in ways that opened hearts rather than shutting them down. Jung noticed that Eckhart's success came from what he called conscious humility, understanding that heightened perception is a gift to be offered gently, not a weapon to be wielded. Jung's own weaving journey. Most importantly, Jung wrote down his struggle with overwhelming perception during what he called his encounter with the unconscious, from 1913 to 1919, which he recorded in the Red Book. Jung wrote, I came close to losing my mind and was saved only by making sense of what was happening through my work with patients. His clear view of unconscious material, both his own and others, nearly broke him until he found ways to purposefully combine these experiences. Jung's big insight came when he realized his overwhelming perceptions weren't a mental illness, but growth. They were signs of awareness, trying to push beyond what most people could currently understand. This finding changed how he helped patients with these gifts, because people who see deeply often face extreme loneliness. Jung emphasized finding what he called the few who understand, rare people who can connect with deep awareness without putting up mental walls. In The Development of Personality, Jung wrote, the blessing of existence is to become your genuine self. But this blessing can't grow alone. It needs to be witnessed by others who can handle seeing the truth. Jung mapped 3 key connection types for people with deep perception. Type 1, fellow awakened souls. Jung wrote, the individuated soul spots another individuated soul instantly. There's a quality of aliveness, a realness that can't be faked. These connections often spark quickly and strongly. You recognize each other as part of what Jung called the aware minority. These rare connections are essential for mental health. With fellow awakened beings, you can be completely yourself without fear of overwhelming or frightening them. Type 2, those on the growth path. Jung saw that people actively working on their inner growth through therapy, soul-searching, or spiritual work can usually handle deep insights without putting up mental barriers. They might not see everything themselves, but they understand why it matters. Jung wrote, "Those who've begun knowing their true selves can handle being truly seen by others." Type 3. Natural containers. Jung found people who, while not seeing as deeply themselves, have what he called natural container ability. They can hold others' mental weight without breaking. These are often people who've faced their own big life storms, the spotting process. Jung outlined clear signs for finding safe connections. They ask real questions about what you notice instead of instantly putting up walls. They can own their flaws and mixed feelings without shame. They show what Jung called mind awareness, real interest in inner worlds. They stay emotionally steady when facing hard truths. They show genuine wonder about consciousness and personal growth. Gradual sharing method. Jung taught a careful way to share your insights with others. First, start with small, gentle observations. Second, watch how they respond to your feedback. Third, notice if they get defensive or stay curious. Fourth, go deeper only if they show they can handle it. Fifth, always offer your insights as possibilities, not absolute truths. Jung said, "The goal isn't finding people who agree with everything you see, but finding people who can work with your insights as helpful ideas, rather than threats to how they see themselves." Because when superior awareness is properly integrated, it helps both the individual and society grow. That's why Jung believed successful integration of your gifts matters not just for your own happiness, but for humanity's growth as a whole. Jung wrote, in The Undiscovered Self, "The individual has always been the carrier of the living spirit, the one who brings about the change in society." He believed that people who successfully blend their deeper awareness into their lives become what he called culture carriers, those who help human consciousness grow and develop. The 4 phases of metamorphosis. Phase 1. Awareness without drowning. The first change happens when you learn how to value your intuitive gifts without letting them take over your life. Jung called this the awakened embrace of your main ability. Jung put it this way: real understanding starts the moment you see your true nature, not the false image you run after or the dark side you're afraid of becoming. Phase 2. Synthesis without separation. The second phase happens when you learn to use your awareness for good purposes while keeping strong relationships. Jung called this collective authenticity, being your true self while staying connected to your community. Jung saw that fully developed people don't hide from life, but engage with it through deeper awareness. Phase 3. Contribution without depletion. The third metamorphosis happens when your awareness becomes something you offer to others, instead of a burden you carry. Jung called this awakened engagement, using your gifts to help others while keeping your own energy strong. Jung said, "Life's greatest gift is finding your true self, and then sharing that truth to help others wake up too." Phase 4. Inheritance without grasping. The final phase shows what Jung called the bridging principle, using your awareness to help grow humanity's consciousness while letting go of needing thanks or recognition for what you share. Jung said, "The fully developed person works for the future, not for praise in the present. Their integration becomes medicine for culture." Jung understood that those who masterfully weave heightened awareness into their being fulfill a crucial role in humanity's unfolding. They witness what the collective mind cannot yet embrace, guiding our species toward essential leaps in growth. Jung expressed, "Whatever remains hidden in shadow emerges as destiny. Those gifted with deep sight who achieve synthesis illuminate buried truths before they erupt as chaos through society's unconscious patterns. But yet Jung cautioned about particular traps that can shatter this metamorphosis, since the journey of weaving profound awareness holds distinct hazards. Thus, Jung mapped the frequent patterns through which people sabotage their own evolutionary passage. Trap 1. The expansion illusion. Jung examined psychological swelling, when people identify with their perceptive abilities rather than maintaining perspective. He warned, the ego fusing with the archetype creates grandiosity that disconnects the soul from authentic relationships. Those with deep perception often fall into the savior syndrome, believing they must awaken humanity from unconsciousness, leading to condescension and eventual isolation. Jung noted, the moment someone sees themselves as keeper of ultimate truth, they've been possessed by the very forces they're trying to understand. Trap 2. Retreat rationalization. Jung documented cases where individuals used their heightened awareness to justify complete withdrawal from society. They convinced themselves others were too unaware to deserve engagement, which Jung saw as spiritual pride masquerading as enlightenment. Jung noted, true wholeness requires engaging with the unconscious realm, not escaping it. Someone who withdraws from life hasn't transcended anything, but has succumbed to its burden. Trap 3. The helper addiction. Jung saw that some very intuitive people become hooked on feeling needed by others. They build their whole identity around their special insights and helping others, while neglecting their own personal growth. Jung warned, when your special awareness becomes your only identity, your true self disappears behind the gift. This isn't real awakening, but its dark side, sacrificing yourself completely for the sake of having a purpose. Trap 4. The flooding cycle. Even people who have learned to handle their special awareness can sometimes lose this ability during stressful times, major life changes, or emotional upheavals. They forget to protect their mental and emotional boundaries and start feeling overwhelmed again by other people's hidden feelings and thoughts. As Jung said, integration isn't something you achieve once and for all, but an ongoing practice that requires constant attention and awareness. Jung developed rituals for maintaining wholeness, quiet reflection to distinguish personal truth from external energies, careful sharing of intuitive insights, ongoing shadow work, connections with supportive others, and artistic expression to channel perceived energies. Jung said, the awakened being masters the conscious rhythm of their own inner cosmos. Jung viewed heightened awareness through humanity's psychological development, seeing intuitive individuals as essential to consciousness evolution. In The Hidden Self, he wrote, the individual remains forever the vessel of awakening essence, the catalyst who ignites transformation within the collective. He recognized these awareness way showers as those whose inner transformation precedes society's readiness. Jung believed that highly perceptive individuals in our era might sense collective psychological patterns, impending societal changes, spiritual dimensions beyond conventional frameworks, unseen technological impacts, and repressed collective shadows. For Jung, sensitive souls feel humanity's pain first and most intensely, with their personal challenges reflecting broader societal issues. His key insight was that heightened awareness best serves evolution when consciously integrated rather than suffered through. Instead of sacrificing yourself for awareness, become a bridge between current reality and future potential. Jung said, the awakened being elevates humanity by fully nurturing their uniqueness until it becomes a gift for all. In the highest state of integration, Jung noted that those with profound sight hold their gifts lightly, seeing truth without seeking validation and perceiving deeply without compulsively fixing every wound. He called this the bridging essence, expanding consciousness naturally by embodying awakened states rather than through forceful teaching. Remember Jung's 1913 client, the visionary who sought help during his dark night. After 3 years on Jung's wholeness path, her life transformed completely. She learned to separate her true inner self from others' energies, found her calling as a guide for troubled souls, built connections with those who valued her wisdom, and began seeing her perception as what Jung called a sacred capacity, requiring conscious development. Jung documented this transformation. The client learned not to see less, but to see more wisely. She didn't feel less deeply, but learned to handle her feelings better. Her special ability remained intact, but she developed a healthier relationship with it instead of being overwhelmed. This shows Jung's key insight. Some people are born with awareness that goes beyond what most people can perceive. This heightened awareness can either break these individuals through isolation and overwhelm, or transform them into exactly what humanity needs for growth and development. Your heightened sensitivity isn't a defect or problem. It's an advanced capacity of consciousness that's still developing. There's nothing wrong with you because you see things others don't. You're simply tuned into deeper levels that most people miss. The real question isn't whether you should dull your awareness to fit in. Instead, ask yourself if you're willing to develop practices that help you use your awareness in a healthy way. Jung showed how to transform this gift from something isolating into something valuable. You can move from being overwhelmed by your perceptions to understanding them, from suffering to making a positive difference. You were born with this sensitivity not to suffer in silence, but to help others wake up to a fuller reality. The world needs your insights, but they must be shared with synthesis, understanding, and intention that transforms raw perception into healing. Your awareness isn't your burden. Your disconnection from it creates the burden. By consciously embodying this gift, you become what Jung saw as essential, guides leading humanity toward an evolution that's inevitable, yet still unseen. Jung's biggest insight wasn't just that some people can see what others miss. It's that many who have this gift don't learn to use it wisely. The problem isn't being highly aware. It's not knowing how to handle this awareness properly. You're not too much for this world. You're exactly what humanity needs, right now. The key is learning to use your perceptive abilities consciously, just as Jung did with his own. The problem with seeing everything isn't that you're too perceptive. It's that you might not learn how to handle these insights in a healthy way. If Jung's description of highly aware people sounds like you're part of a special group he believed was important for humanity's growth. Please share in the comments which type of observer you are. Remember, you're not alone. Others are on this same journey of understanding themselves. Follow along for more insights about Jung's work on psychology and the unconscious mind. If you're interested in learning more about Jung's ideas that go beyond traditional thinking, check out my video about 7 challenging psychological concepts that Jung explored. In the video, I explain the mental patterns that can be harmful for sensitive and intuitive people, and I share Jung's advice for protecting your mental health while exploring the unconscious. Thank you for joining me on this journey. See you in the next chapter.